say to allegations that your family's connections to the Council on Foreign Relations could influence your campaign?
You know, it's kind of interesting. There are opponents in this race who have taken to attacking my wife. And I'll say several things to that. First of all, it's pretty revealing. When you see opponents in a campaign attacking a candidate's wife, my wife's not running for office, I am. And the fact that they are targeting my wife, and what they're targeting is she was, for a brief period, what's called a term member of the Council on Foreign Relations. There are thousands of term members of the Council on Foreign Relations. She joined it when she stepped down. She was in the Bush administration, and she joined it as one of the few conservatives who's part of the Council on Foreign Relations, trying to push for conservative outcomes. John Bolton is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. There are a handful that do so. You know, the fact, though, that some of my opponents are attacking my wife is revealing. What I will say is I will suggest, if someone's worried about that, the reason they're worried about it is the attack is suggesting that I would be less than a full-throated defender of U.S. sovereignty. And that's what my opponents are trying to do. And actually, the person pushing it is David Dewhurst. Now, what he's doing is he's trying to encourage other candidates of mine to attack me on that front, because all he wants to do is divide conservatives, Tea Party activists, libertarians, because if we're divided, he wins. That's his objective, is to divide everyone. So let me suggest this. If you hear a candidate raising this, if you hear a supporter for a candidate raising this, ask, okay, tell me what your candidate has done ever in his entire life to stand up and defend U.S. sovereignty. The irony of this attack is the biggest case of my tenure as Solicitor General was Medellin versus Texas. In Medellin, the World Court, the judicial arm of the United Nations, issued an order to the United States to reopen the convictions of 51 murderers across this country. And on behalf of the state of Texas, I stood up, I fought the World Court, I fought the United Nations, I fought the President of the United States, who was from my own party. It was George W. Bush. But I went before the U.S. Supreme Court and said no president has the constitutional authority to give away U.S. sovereignty. And I won 6-3. I've got a proven record, and there's no candidate in this race that has any record of ever standing up to the UN. There's no candidate in any Senate race in the country who has a comparable record of standing up, fighting for U.S. sovereignty, and winning. And so the irony of this attack is it shows how desperate my opponents are, that they want to slander my wife rather than addressing the records. And the reason is they don't have an answer. I ask any of you, if you're listening to another candidate, ask them, don't give me a speech. Lots of candidates can give a speech, I hate the UN. That's easy to say. Ask, what have you done?